So you can see I've already removed the tire. I've also gone ahead and cleaned the lug bolts here. You want to get them as clean as possible as well, free of debris. You might want to use a copper brush if you have corrosion. Again, I did because I fish a little bit of tidal water, brackish water. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the brake caliper because I know that I need to replace the pads. And again, my 1/2" socket, and then I've got my 14 millimeter 1/2" socket wrench, 14 millimeter socket, and you're going to have 2 bolts that are holding this caliper on. The first bolt is right here behind the caliper at the top, and so you can see the bolt. It's going to be right here, and so let me go ahead. I've already popped it loose a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and get this bolt removed, and I've already removed the bottom one. So let's just get this knocked out real quick. Get that taken off here. Now, I would recommend when you put these bolts back on to use a little bit of the blue Loctite. The reason being is there's a lot of vibration on these trailers, and you can end up having these bolts come loose, which will just tear up your pads and your rotors. All right. So I've got the caliper, and again, I've got it sitting on a box here because you don't want to pull on the connections, pop would tear the hoses and cause a leak. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is remove this retainer pin. Easiest thing to do is just to get a pair of needle nose, and you're just going to get in behind that and twist down a little bit and pull it out. And then the other side's going to come right out. So if you pull down and then out, it pops out really easily. You're going to go ahead and then just remove the pads. Both of them pop out easy. These pads actually, they look good, but because the slide wasn't working right, I've got a bad worn spot on one of the cornies. So again, going to go ahead and change them. And then they're just going to, the pads are just going to pop right out from here. And again, as you can see, brake work is filthy. At this point, you want to make sure that you clean everything good with the brake cleaner. There is absolutely no need to take this all apart, throw new pads in there, and just put it back together without cleaning it. That's just doing the job halfway. You want this to operate as efficiently as possible, as smooth as possible. Get all that dust and dirt and grease, road grime, whatever it might be, out of there, so your slides, the caliper slide, everything is going to work effectively, and so your brakes work like they need to. While I have the tire off and the brake caliper off, what I also want to do is talk a little bit about 2 big issues that cause tire wear that most people just don't check on. And the first is when the hub is put on, was that bolt in the hub seated properly on the spindle? If not, if you wiggle this and there's any movement, whether you're pulling back and forth or up and down, that's loose, that can create tire wear as well as lead to bearing failure and potentially leave you on the road stranded. So make sure that you check this often. And actually, for this part, you can just jack up each tire, get it off the ground, and just shake it to see if there's any play. If there is any play, then you really should go ahead and get that nut tightened, which means you're going to have to pull the vault hub cap off, and at that point you're going to have to go through the whole process of replacing the seals, everything. because you really should not reuse these caps or the rubber seals that you insert. So a second thing that I always recommend checking on your torsion trailer is going to be making sure that your torsion arm pinch bolt here is tightened appropriately, because if this moves any on the spindle, then you're going to get poor tire wear and just, you know, kill the life of your tire. So this bolt needs to be torqued to 150 foot-pounds. And I do recommend taking a paint pen and putting a little mark here on the spindle itself, exactly where this gap is, where the assembly pinches together, that it tightens down. That way you know exactly where it should be should you ever need to replace this. Now that I've got the caliper all cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead and get the slides lubed. So I just buy the brake lubricant in tiny little packets. I use what I need and just toss it. That way I'm not worried about having a contaminated container and then have to keep something and store it. So always a good idea to keep one of these in your boat toolkit. Got Q-tips, and I'm going to use that to be able to apply the grease on the slide. So go ahead. Get that packet opened a little bit. I'm going to squeeze out just a tiny amount of grease. I mean, a really small amount here. And I'm going to get it on my Q-tip. And I really just want a very little bit, because what I'm going to do is I want to put a little grease on this little rubber seal right here that is part of the rubber cap, and that's just to keep it from getting too brittle. And you can see there's going to be a lot of nastiness back there, but that's just going to protect your slide pin boot, that rubber grommet, and just going to get a little bit of grease all the way around that. Now, I don't recommend you using that same Q-tip on the actual slide itself, because you've already gotten some debris on there. So just going to turn it over. Again, I'm just going to get the smallest amount, and I want to go ahead and just get a little grease on the slide right here. You don't want a lot, because it's going to try to collect debris. And then I'm just going to repeat that on the other side. So I've got that little part greased, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the slide in. See, I've got it pushed in. I've removed that gap. I've already removed the two little caps on the end of this rubber grommet, the slide pin boot. I've already removed the cap, and what you want to do is you want to get grease down into here. You don't want to put too much, but you want to get some grease in there to help that slide pin move in and out so your brakes work efficiently. So, got another clean Q-tip. This time, because this is a little more protected once you put that cap on, I want to get a fair amount of grease. And I'm going to squeeze that so I can force that grease down into it. Push that around. And when this thing comes out, it's going to unfortunately be a little dirty. So, flip it back over. Going to use the clean edge again. I'm going to squeeze it in another spot. Get a little more grease down in there. All right, and then I'm just going to repeat it for the other side, and then put the brake pads back in. Because the length of the brake line, unfortunately I can't flip this one up where you're going to be able to see it. Okay. So now that I have the caliper slides well greased, the caps put back on, before I can put the new brake pads in, I need to compress the caliper piston. This is what comes in and out to squeeze your brake pads to create braking onto the rotor. So you need to get this squeezed in. To do that, you either need to use a caliper tool, or you can use a clamp, but honestly they're a pain in the butt. So highly recommend you just go out and get the tool, and then you can use it whenever you need it. But before I can compress it, I've got to go to the front of the trailer and open up the brake reservoir. So let's go do that real quick. All right. So I'm going to take my caliper tool. Going to set it in there. You have to choose the appropriate size, and this takes the largest one. Just going to slide this up in there. And now what I need to do is get that tightened up first before I really kind of set it in place. This here to the box. Alright, so now I'm starting to get a little pressure. And now I can just squeeze, slowly turn, and get that caliper pushed in. done. That easy. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and put this back in the box. It's always easier to put stuff up as you go. Alright. Okay, so I've got the slide pins all lubed up, caps back on. The last thing before I put the pads back on is I need, you want to always replace the retaining clips, so the hardware that comes with your pads. They're a real pain in the butt to get back on. You can use a pair of pliers to pop the old one off. Even after I did a little cleaning, you can see there's some grime on that. By putting on the new clips, it's going to be free to slide and get everything set properly. So I've already popped one off. I'm going to go ahead and pop the other and then put the new retaining clips in place. Again, pain in the butt to get on and off. Alright, so I've got the two old clips off, cleaned out underneath it. When you set the new clip in, you just kind of set it right there on the edge, and then if you push down from the top, you'll hear it click in. There you go. So I've got my new pads. Gonna push them in here. I'm going to install the back one first. Kind of get it in there. Have to do a little wiggling, pushing. Get that thing slid in. I'm going to use a little bit of paper towel. I got a little grease on my hands, so just get it pushed back in there. I did get a little grease on the pad. You really don't want to do that if you can help it. So you get the back one in first, then you come and you push in the front one here, and now you want to put on your retainer clip. So again, here I'm going to grab my needle nose. The first one's actually pretty easy. You just kind of get it here, and you want to get the clip down into the hole. So I'm just going to push it in there. There, and get it on. Now, the second one, the easiest way is to grab this and you get it kind of close to the hole and twist down and then push in. And it can be a pain sometimes. Ready to install the caliper back on the hub. So I am going to get my blue Loctite and my bolts, And then I'm just going to add that Loctite to the thread. And you want to do it up towards the top end where it's actually going to seat, not at the bottom of the thread. So, got that bolt in. Pick up my caliper, get it, slide it on, and then I need to just line it up with that hole right there. Kind of hard to get to with the cameras, but I'm just going to again realign the holes until it feels like there you go, that one was able to go in pretty easy. Again, my 14mm socket here. Snug that one up a little bit. Get the bottom one snugged up a little bit. Get it tight. All right. Final step, now that I've got the caliper bolts seated and tightened, torque them down to 55 foot-pounds, and then we're good to go. Alright, 55 on that one. Now that I've got the bolts on the brake caliper torqued to 55 foot-pounds, all I need to do is reinstall the tire and I am ready to go. So I'll make sure that when I put the lug nuts on, I'm going to torque them to the appropriate specifications. After I've trailered about 100 miles, I will actually stop and then get the torque wrench out and recheck to make sure that all the lug nuts are still appropriately tightened. You know, that's just for safety in case something loosens.